All right, finished up the first review video, and we finished or ended that one with adding and subtracting fractions. So what we're going to do is pick up with this one with dividing fractions. When dividing fractions, and of course add this to your notes, the review packet, we're going to convert all mixed numbers to improper fractions. So we're going to convert all mixed numbers to improper fractions. Once you do that, remember what happens to the division sign. The division sign becomes multiplication. Then we take the reciprocal. We talked about the keep, change, flip. Okay, so we can't forget that. We do the keep, change, and flip. So we keep, change, flip. All right, the first example we're going to go with is let's take 7/8 and let's divide that by 3/5. All right, so I know I'm using the phrase keep, change, flip, but basically what that means is we keep the first fraction the same. We change it. We change the division sign to multiplication, and then we flip the second fraction. This flipping is called the reciprocal. So what we're doing is basically multiplying by the reciprocal. So as I go through and do that, the 7/8 stay the same. Division becomes multiplication. The 3/5 now becomes 5/3. So we're now multiplying 7/8 times 5/3. And this is where we can simplify. Simplify after you change everything. So simplify after you change the division and multiplication and do the reciprocal. Do not simplify at the first step. All right, so I'm going to look at the 7 and 8, the 5 and 3, the 3 and 7, and 5 and 8 to see if they can simplify. Nothing will simplify, so what I do is I go back to multiplying. The rule for multiplying is straight across, so 7 times 5 is 35, and then 8 times 3 is 24. And we do not want to leave it improper, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide and make it mixed. So if you need to, go off to the side. 24 can go into 35 one time. And you do the math, you get 11. So our whole number is a 1. So I'm going to drop that 1 down and bring the 24 down as my denominator. So our answer is 1 and 11. All right, is 1 and 11 24ths. So if you'll copy down this information, the example here, so that you'll have it to refer to. All right, let's now do another example where we have some mixed numbers. Let's take, let me see, 4 and 3, 6, and let's divide that by 2 and about 1/4. All right. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we want to change any mixed numbers to improper. So what I'm going to do is 4 and 3, 6. Remember, we multiply and then add. 4 times 6, or 6 times 4 is 24, plus 3 is 27 over 6. 4 times 2 plus 1. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. So that now gives us 9 over 4. So the only thing I've done is make it mixed. Change it from mixed to improper. Now that they're improper, I can now go through my process of changing the division sign to multiplication. I keep the first fraction, and I flip the second one, which means I take the reciprocal of it. So now let's see if we can simplify. I see the 4 and the 6 are both even numbers, so they can both be divided by 2. So 4 divided by 2 will give you 2. 6 divided by 2 will give you 3. What about the 9 and 27? Well, we know both 9 and 27 can be divided by 3. So 9 divided by 3 is 3. 27 divided by 3 is 9. All right, can they simplify some more? The 3 and the 9 can. They can both be divided by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. 9 divided by 3 gives you 3. All right, so I'm going to stop there with our simplifying. So that gives us a 3 and a 2 on the top, a 3 and a 1 on the bottom. If you'll notice, this 3 right here and this 3 on the bottom, they can actually simplify each other. But I'm going to just leave it the way it is and then simplify maybe at the end. So let's multiply across the top. 3 times 2 gives you 6. 3 and 1 on the bottom gives you 3. 6 and 3, they simplify. Another way to look at it, that can be divided. 6 divided by 3 in this case gives you 2. So our answer for this one is plain old 2. So here's our example where we converted it to an improper fraction. We did the keep, change, flip. And then we started simplifying. And then once we simplified to a certain point, we multiplied, got 6/3 and 6/3 or 6/3 simplifies to just plain 2. All right, so that is multiplying and dividing with positive and negative numbers. Or just, I shouldn't say positive and negative, just dividing. We just did the multiplying on the previous video. But if we had negative numbers in here, we would apply the rules for adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. All right. Since we're talking about fractions, let's now talk about converting fractions to decimals. But before we do that, let's talk real quick about how everything should look in the review packet. If I go back, we have first thing is adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers, multiplying and dividing positive and negative numbers. Some examples. Number 3 is percents and proportions. And then did some examples there, and then got to adding and subtracting fractions, which is our 4th major area. And then dividing fractions, let's actually go ahead and label this 5. So this will be the 5th thing in our packet. And then this is going to be our 6th thing, converting fractions to decimal. So converting fractions to decimal is very straightforward. Let's start out with an easy one. 4/8. One thing you can always do is, I'm going to put a list over here, is we can simplify, if possible. Okay, so sometimes that may make it easier. So converting fractions to decimals, our example is 4/8. And then first thing I'm going to do is simplify if possible. If you look at 4/8, they both can be divided by 4, which gives you 1/2. And most of you know 1/2 is a decimal, equals 0.5. Now, you may know it equals 0.5, but do you know how to actually get 0.5? So 0.5 out of 4/8, or better yet, 1/2. 1/2 or 4/8 means division. So we take the top number, put it on the inside, turn the board off and turn it right back on. 1/2 is a fraction. It means division. Of course, my board's still messed up. Give me one more minute. All right, so we have 1/2. It means division, so the top number is what goes on the inside. The denominator, the 2, is on the outside. 1 cannot be divided by 2, but as you know, you can always add decimals and zeros. Bring the decimal straight up. 2 cannot go into 1, but 2 can go into 10. It goes 5 times. 5 times 2 is 10. And I get 0. If I want to, I can put another 0 right there, which gives us our answer of 0.5 or just plain 0.5. And if I want to put the 0 after it, doesn't do anything, you can. And so that's how we convert a fraction to a decimal. Now, if we have a mixed number, what we're going to do if we have a mixed number is we're going to basically do the same thing. But before we do the division, we're going to take that mixed number. Let's use 2 3/4. We're going to first of all make it improper. So we're going to multiply 4 times 2, then add 3. 4 times 2 is 8 plus 3 gives you 11. So that gives us 11/4. And as we all know, it means division right there with that bar. So we're going to divide the denominator 4 into 11, or another way we can add it is divide 11 by 4. So 4 can go into 11 2 times. 2 times 4 is 8. Have to turn it off again. 2 times 4 gives you 8. We subtract and get 3. I'm going to drop down that 0. So we now have 30. 4 can go into 30 7 times. Here's my decimal right here. 7 times 4 is 28. Subtract and get 2. And we'll drop down that last 0. 4 can go into 20 5 times. 5 times 4 is 20. And when we subtract, we get 0. So that leaves our decimal, or our answer, as 2 75/100. So 2.75. So
I took 2 3/4 and converted that to 11/4. We then went through and divided, and we got 2.75 as our decimal value. All right, let's convert now decimals to fractions. Converting decimals to fractions is another simple process. It's basically reverse. All right, so let's take this one, 25 hundredths, or 0.25, which is still 25 hundredths. What I tell students is, first of all, say it the right way. If we look at this number, we say 25 hundredths. Now write that as a fraction. 25 hundredths. So, we're going to write it as a fraction. And then, of course, we always simplify if possible. Of course, let me go ahead and highlight this. All right, so 25 hundredths. Most of you can think about that in terms of quarters and dollars. There are 4 quarters in a dollar. 25 is just one of them, so that'd be 1 out of 4. So our simplified fraction is 1/4. Now, how do I do that mathematically? I can look at that and see, okay, 25 and 100 can both be divided by 25, or I could divide it by 5 and then kept simplifying, but you would eventually get to 1/4. All right, let's do another one. Let's do 3.55. 3.55. All right, so what we're going to do is write it the way it sounds. 3 and 55 hundredths. 3 and 55. Turn it off again. So we get 3 and 55 hundredths. And we just start simplifying. 55 and 100, they can both be divided by 5. I try to make it easy on myself. 55 divided by 5 is 11. 100 divided by 5 is 20. 11 and 20 do not simplify, so that gives us 3 and 11/20. Now, that is the mathematical way. Basically writing it the way it sounds. Let me give you another example of how you can do it. Let's go back to this first one. There are 2 decimal values, or 2 decimal places. What we're going to do is we're going to write this number as our numerator, which I did right here. We're then going to put on the bottom however many decimal places we have. We're going to put that many zeros after a 1. So there's 2 decimal places, so I'm going to have 2 zeros after a 1. So it gives me 100. Same thing with the second one. Except this time I have a whole number, so I put the whole number in front. I have 2 decimal places, which means I'm going to have 2 zeros after the 1. So that gives you 3 and 55 100ths. Let me do another one. Let's say you have 735 500ths. And let me simplify, or turn it off real quick. I think I said 735 500ths. I didn't mean to do that, so just regard what I just said. I'm going to give you a break. Let me do this, 735 thousandths. All right, so I can write it the way it sounds, 735 thousandths. Or I could look at this and say, okay, there's 3 decimal places. That means I'm going to have 3 zeros after a 1 on the bottom, and then just write that number on top. And then, of course, we would simplify. And then when you divide 735 by a common number with 1,000, you'll notice both of those can be divided by 5. So 735 divided by 5 gives you 147. And then, of course, 1,000 divided by 5 gives you 200. And then we look at that. You can divide. Nothing will go into it. 2 won't go into it. 3 won't go into both of them. 4 will not work. 5 will not work. So you can just keep going, but this would be our answer right here. So you would get 735 thousandths, and then we just simplify it to 147/200. So that is how we convert fractions to decimals. Okay? A while ago, when we went to the previous screen, that gave us our 6th thing. So this right here is going to be our 7th thing. So this would be 7.